Halcyon 6 Starbase Commander, Lightspeed Edition, is a turn-based, retro-styled sci-fi RPG. The player is the commander of the last Federation starbase, and responsible for saving humanity from extinction. Story: an unknown alien species surprise attacks, and the Federation instantly goes from thriving to barely surviving. Only a single starbase remains to protect the crew there, a handful of surviving colonies, and random stragglers. However, while the starbase is Terran-controlled, it's not Terran-made. Halcyon 6 is an ancient alien artifact, which Terrans are using, but also still studying. Realizing its full power in nature might be key to survival, and time is clearly of the essence because the cruel aren't done yet. Meanwhile, there are also non-Federation forces which weren't attacked, pirate factions, and other spacefaring empires. The player can choose whether or not to help them. Those choices do alter the story's events and ending slides. I found that it's worthwhile to help them. When a player improves diplomacy meters, then the same representatives show up several times. They're more like caricatures than they are characters, but they add entertainment. The game also has Easter eggs, sci-fi references such as Bucky Rogers and the Kirkish Haymaker. I don't want to give spoilers, but I think its story is just okay. It's a standard sci-fi plot that, despite its charm and quirky alien run-ins, only provides middling entertainment. The mystery behind the cruel isn't revealed well, then the tale has a typical ending. Altogether, I'd rate that a solid 5 out of 10. Very average. Nothing subpar, but nothing that really stood out either. Gameplay. Many things are juggled at once in different places, so for clarity, I'm going to quickly divide them up into 6 categories: starbase, space, battles, resources, officers, and diplomacy. Then I'll cover difficulty modes and the bugs/flaws that it has. 1. Starbase. Officers explore empty rooms, build facilities, and use those to either make improvements or generate resources. The tech tree is required for unlocking the know-how to build advanced rooms, and events can happen in the starbase, but those are rare. 2. Space. Exploration leads to finding colonies, events, and battles. Colonies provide resources if they're not evacuated, and they can be improved. Events are rare to find, such as finding and rescuing solitary stragglers. 3. Battles. If the starbase is attacked and reaches 0 HP, then it's game over. Otherwise, battles are usually optional. Ground and ship battles use different abilities, but follow the same 3v3 lineup. The combat system's simple. It's all about hitting enemies with whatever they're weak to. Their resistances differ, but can be viewed pre-battle. Healing skills can be used outside of battle. After battle, for ships, healing any damage and restoring limited abilities happens only at the starbase. People heal differently than ships do and can insta-heal wherever, pre-battle, for a small dark matter cost. 4. Resources. Resources are generated at the base, collected from colonies, and earned as battle rewards. Crew restores dead colonies in space and is required for a few starbase improvements. Dark matter and materials are used for construction and research, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Dark matter is also used for healing. Fuel powers space exploration. 5. Officers. Officers pilot ships, fight, complete tasks, and their recruitment number is limited. They have their own classes, which determines what kinds of ships they can pilot. A full team is a group of 3 ships. A balanced team leads to easier fights. Their experience points could be considered as an additional hidden resource to manage because they each get their own and have their own leveling trees. Leveling up improves their skills, making them far more competent, but it's also important because it lets them complete advanced level restricted tasks. 6. Diplomacy. When aliens visit the starbase, then dialogue happens and choices are offered. Different responses get different reactions. Accepting missions raises their meters, refusing to help them or attacking their ships when out and about lowers the meters. Difficulty modes. There are several difficulty modes to choose from. The captain mode's description sounded standard, and so I just tried that one. Towards the end of the game, gameplay begins to feel grinding, mainly in its combat. This is because its combat system is basically a simple puzzle. If an enemy's weak to A, choose A. If it's weak to C, then choose C. That's fine, but recycling it too much can be boring, and in this game it was. Yet, I wanted to see if Halcyon 6 could be less boring. After all, it was kinda charming, so I thought that perhaps increased scarcity and limiting battles might help. I tried to rush it through its most challenging difficulty, Emperor Mode, but Emperor Mode actually made the game worse to play in a few ways. Random ground fights have randomly generated enemies. Some teams are easy to defeat on Emperor Mode, but others are weirdly harder to defeat than the game's final boss. It's really unbalanced. Clearly has spikes. An optional scripted mini-boss fight has non-random enemies, but is even worse. Its combat system's high degree of hidden roll randomness isn't as noticeable on lower difficulty modes. When an enemy's damage output is intense, as it is in Emperor Mode, then a few unfortunate rolls can become a blatant wallop. The final boss is that. It's still a winnable fight, just erratic in several ways, and it might take more than one go if you're unfortunate with the hidden rolls. In comparison, Captain Mode trumps Emperor Mode because it was a smoother gameplay experience, no weird swings in its difficulty or a reliance on luck versus skill. So while its easiest mode would likely feel too quick to win, its hardest mode isn't worthwhile either. Picking any difficulty mode that's not at a polar end would likely work fine. The gameplay will likely feel a bit grindy by the end no matter what mode's chosen. Altogether, I'd say its gameplay was much like its story, very average. Nothing subpar, but nothing that stood out as great either. Bugs and flaws. Other problems were minimal. Random typos were few, but present. For example, I noticed one which said that I'd space people instead of spare people. That made me do a double take and was kinda funny. The game crashed once at random during the final battle on Captain mode, but when reload it was fine, didn't crash again otherwise. Look and sound. Its pixel art is cute and endearing, and there are many varied, nice scenes. Yet, oddly, it had a gory set of death animations for the crew's ground combat that starkly contrasted with the game's otherwise playful and bloodless vibe. Cute charm meets random, rare, unexpected horror flick moments. It wasn't terrible, it was just an odd tone shift in context. Ground battles happened only sporadically, and deaths during them were rare. Plus, the game does really seem G-rated otherwise, which I think makes random gore an odd, alienating design choice. I can imagine parents thinking that they got a cute, totally family-friendly game, only to be unpleasantly surprised. Sound-wise, it's fine. Nothing stood out to me. Nothing seemed bad either. Time and cost. It's usually about $15 and about $3 on sale. I took a little over 19 hours to beat it when not rushing, and that seems standard. Given how heavily it gets discounted, I think that waiting for a sale is optimal. Final thoughts. On the whole, I think that Halcyon 6 skated by on a mixture of charm and variety. Its dialogue, Easter eggs, quirky nature, cheesy choices such as calling the villains cruel, and pleasant aesthetic made it somewhat endearing. Meanwhile, its task variety remained engaging enough for hours, despite its simplicity. Repetition did become a problem over time. It got a little grindy, especially in its combat, but it still wasn't too bad compared to other games that I played.